Or you need help deciding between a startup and a corporate job? I got you. All right, let's get right to it. Pros and cons of working at a large corporation versus a startup. Coming from someone who worked at a large corporation worth $2 billion and left to start a startup that's now worth $4 billion. Everyone hates on a large corporation the 9 to 5, but honestly, it's not that bad.
Living that corporate life, yeah, we doing it right. Money stacking high, putting on a show.
All right, jumping into the pros. Number one, a name that speaks for itself. There's nothing cooler than working at a company that's a household name that everyone knows. It's good for your resume, and it also feels awesome when you tell people where you work, and they're like, oh wow, I know that company, or I use that company. Number two, the biggest pro, in my opinion, in working for a corporation is you can master a skill. Corporations tend to have more direct roles. If you're in sales, you're selling to customers. If you're in customer service, you're helping these customers. So if you already know the role or direction you want to go into, corporate life is a pretty good idea. You have mentors you can learn from. They invest heavily in your training, and you don't have to focus on a lot of other things.
Your one job is your one job.
There's not fires like at a startup. And that brings me to number three, fixing problems is a breeze. If you have something you don't know, I guarantee there's some kind of tutorial, some kind of manual, or someone who can help. Whereas when you're at a startup, you don't know where you're going to go to fix a problem. Number four, and the part that I really loved about working at a corporation, was the benefits. The massive holiday parties, the free lunches. There are so many things you get at a big corporation that you're just not going to get at a startup. These large corporations can offer excellent perks with all the money they have. Large pensions, 401ks, stock plans, insurance, you name it. And being at a company usually means a bigger salary, although I have seen the opposite as well. The last thing I'll say, and some people might not like this, is you don't have to work as hard. You really don't. If you have an off day, the company's still going to keep moving and be just fine. So now you've seen the great things about working at a large corporation. Let's go into the cons. The number one for me was lack of influence. I really hated not being able to have an impact in my company with the day-to-day. I hated it. It's very tough. I really cared about the first company I started, Cvent. Still have a lot of love for them, but I wanted to do big things. It is very hard at a big company. You got to get this approval. You got to go here. You got to make sure you don't step on someone else's toes. I didn't like it. I couldn't make big things happen. The second thing I hated was no risk. You could walk into a VP's door with a big idea it's going to save them 20% or make them 20% more, whatever, and there's still a very small chance it's going to happen. 9 times out of 10, the company's usually always going to just continue to do what's working well. And I get it. They have shareholders. They can't really take risk. But man, it's just not as fun. Number 3, less job satisfaction. Being a tiny cog in a massive machine, it's truly hard to see the value of your work. You're just one part of the process, contributing to a small amount of a massive end result that you might not see for months or years. Again, that's why you can also have an off day.
But it's sad to not see your impact when you put in hard work.
Number 4, I'll call it growing pains. You may crush your job at work. You may do something amazing, but someone still might get promoted over you. Also, it's just harder to get promoted in general. There's more people fighting for it. There's less positions available. And many people in these jobs don't want to leave. Once they get to a director or VP level, where are they going to go? Why would they get out of the way? So yes, at a corporation, you can see your path clearly, but you don't know how long it's going to take to get there. There's a lot of moving parts. All right, and on with that, let's get into startups.
It's a grind. Gotta put in the hours. Nothing less than kind.
Pros for startups. Number 1, gains. And I'm not talking about the gym. When you're in a startup, you can jump into whatever role you've thought about, and you're going to gain so many skills so fast because you have to wear a lot of hats and things are coming at you quickly. You have to solve the problem. You can't lean on a doc. You can't lean on a person. You got to lean on your own brain and make it happen, which is amazing training. You'll definitely be working multiple roles, but it's cool to see how they come together. In the early days of ClickUp, I was our number 1 sales rep, but I was also the customer service rep and kind of HR because I was hiring too. I loved it. But yeah, working for a startup is the best way to gain as many skills as possible, hands down. Number 2, and my favorite, and maybe it should be number 1 because it's the biggest reason why you should work at a startup, equity. Sure, large companies will give you stock options, but they're capped as much as possible because they have to share with a lot of people. When you're early on in a startup, you can get something massive, something that can change your life if this company gets big. Equity is such an amazing thing when you're at a startup because it really has you buy in. Imagine having 1% or even 0.5% of a company that could be worth 100 or $1 billion. It's a lot, and it really makes you care and dive in and work those extra hours. For me, it made the extra hours easy. Number 3, you got more opportunities to be moving on up. I remember at Cvent, it would have taken me probably 10, 15 years to get to a VP level. I'm serious, if I would have even gotten there. But when you're at a startup, you might could get there in 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on how you prove yourself or what you do for that company. Now, this doesn't come easy because you're going to make big decisions. And yes, you could hurt or affect the company. But these wrong decisions don't hurt as much when you're a smaller company and have less customers. So you can try things. But look, like everything in life, struggles build character. And I really think you can become a better employee by making these mistakes. But again, it's quite impossible to fresh out of college within 2 or 3 years get a VP title. Whereas at a startup, it's realistic, especially if you're in the top 5 employees. Number 4, you'll have the opportunity to experiment. Big time. You can have an idea and start it right that day if you want to. Whereas at a large corporation, you would have to ask for approval, go through red tape, You can immediately jump in and have an idea and make an impact the very next day. I'll give you an example. I always remember my dad telling me when I was in sales at his company to make sure everyone feels like they got a deal, no matter what. So I thought about that and I was like, how can we do that in ClickUp when I'm at sales? So we had this little button where you could say, let's make a deal. And they could propose and make a deal with me. And I could get on the phone and we can negotiate together. Obviously, I knew what numbers I couldn't go below, but I would actually make a deal with them, something lower than our starting cost. And that made people feel cool that they worked and they got a deal. This ended up bringing a lot more income into ClickUp. It was an awesome decision and just an idea I had one night hanging out. All right, so I'm sure I've got you hyped on a startup, and it is great. But let me tell you, for all the good times, there's also some bad times. So let's get into the cons. Con number 1, you will have to solve every problem almost on your own. You don't have that many teammates. You don't have many people who've done it before. This is you. You're paving the way. So when something tough comes up, you got to put your thinking hat on and you got to figure it out. You can't just start bothering the CEO or something every single time. Their time is valuable and they'll get annoyed by it. So you have to take time. You have to use AI or resources. Find ways to answer your questions on your own. And then when you do have to ask, come with a solution. That's the way to do it. So this may be a con, but to be honest, I look at it as a strength in the long run because problem solving is the number 1 skill in any business. All right, con number 2, there's no beating around the bush. The workload is heavy. You're gonna work long hours. You're gonna have projects that you don't know how you're gonna get done. It's gonna be tough. The only advice I can give you so you don't get cut is be an A+ player. Nobody cuts A+ players. I have plenty more videos on this, so check mine out. And hit the like button. I'm definitely giving you a lot of value here, and I'm saving you some time from choosing the wrong company. So now you know the pros and the cons of startups and corporations. But now let's think about you. What would you be a better fit for? So let's start with corporations. The first trait of a good corporate employee is being dependable. The number 1 trait at a corporate company is really just showing up, following through, and doing your due diligence. If you do this all the time and you're consistent, you will eventually move up. You don't have to have the best work, but showing up and getting your work done, people notice that. Number 2 is ambition. Ambitious people typically do well at corporations. Why? Because they see their goals right in front of them. They know the steps they have to take. They know what they have to get done. They know their quarterly goals, their KPIs, and they're taking steps towards it every single day. And you will get rewarded eventually. Number 3 is being a culture fit. Every single big corporation has some type of culture. You got to feel what that is. They want people who are going to drink the Kool-Aid, be at the events, pushing every day, making other employees better. They don't want anyone negative. Some cultures might be more exciting. Some might be more daily grind. So you got to figure out what yours is first and then make sure it matches the company you're getting into. But if you are a good culture fit, that will also stand out really quickly to the VPs and the bosses. I will warn you, if you get hired to a large corporation and you're not a culture fit, you'll feel alienated. You'll see people hanging out. You won't be able to get into the groups. You just won't fit in. So really take your time to make sure you're a culture fit. Number 4 is kind of like number 3. It's team spirit and positivity. Corporations love those employees who are at every single event, wearing the company t-shirts, making sure they talk to everyone, being around. That's what they want to do. They just want to see you. That's how you move up better. They really want people who eat, sleep, and breathe their company. And that makes sense. That is how you move up quicker, and you will add more value to the company by doing that. All right, so what makes a good startup employee? The number 1 is grit. Think about it. You got to go through a lot at a startup. You're going to get kicked. You're going to lose money. Things are going to hurt. But having grit and having the wherewithal to take those problems, solve them, and then keep going is something that's very special in this space. An A-level player will not be discouraged by failure. So if you're someone who can take that failure and keep moving and then innovate from there, you'll do great at a startup. Number 2, and I can't stress this enough, is being an effective communicator. Again, when you're having these problems and you're having things happening, you're going to need to explain it in a great way. And then as the company grows, you're going to be the person that has to teach the new people. So you need to be really good at communicating what you've learned and what you've seen because your experience is invaluable to these new people coming in. Communication and transparency also helps startups grow faster. So when you learn something, you can put it in a channel so everyone else can learn. That's the key. Communicate everything you learn, communicate things you see, because this helps those around you, because they're all new as well to everything coming at them. Number 3, and this is a core value of ClickUp, so I love it. It's a get shit done mentality. Everyone has a plan. Every entrepreneur does. But after 3 or 4 tasks in the startup world, you'll realize that plan is gone. You got to innovate. You got to think fast. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm super confident in saying that no company's business plan from the beginning is anywhere the same after 6 months. Everything changes. Startup employees spend a lot less time planning and a lot more time doing. There's always tasks coming in, so you don't have time to plan. You just got to start moving and see things that need to get done and get them done. Number 4, I love this one. I learned it from our CEO, Zeb. It's curiosity. Nothing's cooler than seeing an employee really diving into something and getting curious and wanting to figure something out and thinking outside the box. Curiosity allows you to think about things that no one else has. It allows you to think of things that are impossible. And that is what's so special in a startup, making the impossible possible. I've seen it so many times when an employee starts looking at something and is like, there has to be a better way to do this. That's when the magic happens. All right, so startup versus corporation, I would do exactly what I did. You're just graduating college or you're just getting in the workforce, you need a couple things. You need stability, you need skills, you need a constant paycheck, and those benefits and stuff are really fun. So join a corporation. It's exactly what it provides. From there, you're going to be at a big name, you're going to save some money, you're going to get amazing skills, you're going to meet great connections, and then after 4 years, you should be able to get your equity, and then you can go to a startup where it's going to be tough, but they're going to look up to your skills and what you learned at that big company. So at the startup is where things are going to get real. Now you're going to see how a work world really works. You're going to get bigger tasks. You're going to get harder problems, but you're also going to get something you didn't get at the big corporation. You're going to get equity. You're going to get a say. You're going to be able to innovate. You're going to learn so many things so fast, and you're going to have a chance at getting rich quicker than you would at a corporation. So at the end of the day, go to a corporation, get your skills, go to a startup, go crush your career. It's the B2B MC. I love helping you all. I wish someone told me this earlier. Go crush your career.
Gotta stay so crazy. Pros and cons, always trying to win.